Hi, everybody. I'm McCarthy Coyle, and this is a public conversation. And the way I'm feeling, if I didn't have a calendar in front of me, and I don't have a calendar in front of me, I really don't know. I know it's a Thursday, but I don't know what date it is, and that's how I'm feeling. I can't say that I have a wonderful attitude this holiday season, and I'm not expecting it to get much better. But I have some good friends, and I even got a neck and a back and a shoulder rub from someone from the lake. You know those people from the lake. Anyway, we've got a great crew tonight. You're watching live. This is a public conversation. And a little bit later, we're going to have a guest whom many of you are familiar with, and that's Richie Doyle, who's also working crew tonight. And Richie is going to give a live, never seen it before, demonstration of what a divot is, D-I-V-O-T, which is a Scottish word originally, a divot, and golfers are familiar with divots. And Richie will explain, demonstrating the significance of why the developers, the would-be developers at Fort Missoula are called Divot Development. That should be interesting. I took a ride out to Fort Missoula today to look at the place where I want to live. That's the stables that the developers want to tear down. Built in 1915. And we'll be taking your calls a little bit later. Stay tuned, please. Along about 10:20, I think we'll start taking some calls, ideas, suggestions. But I think the University of Montana and its foundation are on a rampage. And after revisiting Fort Missoula today, I thought, well, now wait a minute. This university has not been a good steward of this land for 25 years. They had the responsibility. They were given the land, the territory, our territory. And they've let it go to seed, and now they want to unload it. And we'll talk about that. But anyway, I want to talk about a letter, and I want to recall some Christmas solstice and holiday greetings. But I'm proud of my mom. She's 85, and she's still trying to cook up ideas. And she, like a lot of people in the country, are very concerned about guns and violence. And she called me up about a month ago. She knows that I'm always hitting the keyboard on the computer. And she said, who's that woman, Patricia somebody, who's the head of that now, that, this is my mother, 85. She's head of that national organization for women. She said, I want them to surround the headquarters of the National Rifle Association in Washington, D.C. And my mother described what she wanted and what she thought could be expected from something like this. And my mother recalled the women down in Argentina who for so many years gathered in the public square in the capital city there, just quietly, silently, a silent accusation appearing. They were, what was that movement called? It was a Spanish word, the desperacidos. Would that be it, Mimi? The disappeared, and they wanted to know. That was what they called themselves, the mothers of the disappeared ones, the children. So this is what my mother described, and she said that those women in Argentina, after all those years of keeping a silent vigil, exposed that government for what it was and humiliated them. And so my mom said, yes, I want to write to Patricia Ireland, and I want to suggest that the women of America surround the NRA and keep a silent vigil there until that organization is more embarrassed and humiliated than it should be for what it does to the political commerce of this country. And so I hit the computer on behalf of my mother, and I expressed her ideas, and my mother then sent this letter to Patricia Ireland. the president of the National Organization for Women, and my mother got this reply back the 29th of November. Dear Maria, thanks very much for your letter regarding gun control and your suggestion to have ongoing demonstrations at the National Rifle Association building. I find your idea of an ongoing silent protest at once exciting and exhausting. Unfortunately, we just don't have the resources to implement your plan through this office. Hence, I have passed your suggestion on to our local chapter here in Washington, D.C. And while I cannot promise that the D.C. chapter will act on your idea, I am sure they will give due consideration. And again, my thanks to you for writing. I hope the upcoming holidays bring peace and happiness to you and your loved ones. Yours for now, Patricia Ireland, President. So, good idea, Mom. Keep the letters flying there. And Divot Development, that's very interesting. And parking lots, and what are they going to, anyway, we'll get into that bad stuff here. Oh, and what, MCAT survives now on an 11-to-1 vote of the City Council. That's good news. This was a holiday greeting that I helped put together in December of 1991, which appeared in the Missoula Independent, and it reads like this. The solstice is descending, and 1991, shall we substitute 93, coming to its close. The new year is beginning. We find ourselves in tumultuous times, more and more out of work, homeless, hungry, unwell. The difficulties and the dangers that surround us are enormous and sometimes frightening. Yet there are always those who help us each find gifts of peace and joy day in and day out. Many thanks are in order for the generosity and the gentleness which does finally prevail in ways large and small. So salutations to the librarians and blacksmiths, nurses and ditch riders, nuns and card dealers and rescue pilots. Goodwill to all gardeners and canners and cooks and waiters and washers of dishes. Happy times to telephone operators and dancers and bartenders. Good show to house painters and carpenters and loggers and rock hounds and bird watchers. And thanks to ticket takers and meter maids, mechanics and smoke jumpers. And kudos to teachers and post office workers and ski instructors and even the folks who push all the civic paper. And strokes to the folks who volunteer their labors of love and keep us all thriving. Thanks to music makers and storytellers and those who help make sure everyone can have some chow and find a place to sleep on a cold night. The roster of these good laborers could continue, but because there's more work to do and fun to have and visions to dream, let's make a list and not even check it twice. Let's resolve to build some more houses. Dedicate ourselves to clean the air and the water, immunize more kids, and make sure mothers get all the help they deserve. Let's fight together to keep poisons out of our town and work together to plant more flowers and trees. And let's allow ourselves to imagine more, grabbing a great seat on a train to Butte or Hamilton or Whitefish, cruising safely on bike paths, dropping into a neighborhood recycling center. And let's guarantee our abused neighbors, especially children, protection. Let's take a major in peace studies and vow to save this great wild place. And let's stop making families beg for food and shelter and medical care. And then let's craft more animals for the carousel and fix up a place for teenagers to hang and try hard to see if the politicians really have anything to say that means something plain to our lives. Together we can do and enjoy these things. We should. Peace and goodwill to all. So I was going through my scrapbooks and I found that and I thought, well, that's a good solstice, New Year's, Christmas, Hanukkah greeting, and so I thought maybe that would put us all in some place of a better space. So anyway, took a ride out to Fort Missoula. I haven't been reading. I can't say that I have followed every nuance of this debate in City Council and the city-county planning. I know it's been very controversial, and once again we're in the heat of a citywide debate and discussion over development and how it should proceed. And I think that if the debate continues to be as divisive as it seems to be growing, then maybe it's time for the city council to put it up to the citizens of Missoula. If they can't handle their authority in ways which protect our open spaces and our historical spaces, if they don't have the rigor to be able to do that themselves, then maybe they should put this onto a special referendum ballot and let the people of Missoula vote directly so that we can, assert our own authority. And if the city council, which has the authority to do that, to place a referendum on the ballot, if they don't want to do that, then perhaps it's time that we exercise rights that we've exercised in the past and seize the initiative and gather signatures and put in an initiative on the ballot for a special election. So looking out there at Fort Missoula today and hearing about what the university is doing, and they want to put up a parking lot on the north side of the river. Of course, we want more cars. We want more cars, and they want to put up a new business school, even though all over the country people are looking for jobs, including business graduates. And so that's fine. They'll just tear up and eliminate that acres worth of ground up there on Arthur, across from the health center at the university, where the band practices and where people play football and baseball and soccer, and it's in use, it seems like, all year round, except for even the coldest days. And then I'll even see people out there skiing around that place. And no, we'll just eliminate that. And the students at the university told the administration that they did not want the business school there. And but there it goes. They don't like it, but we don't know anything. The people that I talked to all over town this past week are really tricked off about this. But what do we know? We're just people who don't know enough. We should turn over all our responsibility to Divot Development and to the University of Montana Foundation, because they know what's best for the community. And the University of Montana, which contributes to the housing crisis in this city, they solved the housing crisis by selling land, trying to a bunch of developers who are going to put up, they want to put up 303 homes, but not for students, Well, Richard Doyle.
Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh,
Glad you could come down.
top of the evening to you.
Yeah, yourself. No Irish brogues now. No Irish.
Well,
I'm
it
not
happens
gonna-
I get an Irish brogue and I get all fired up. I'm fired up,
Okay.
McCarthy.
All right.
Fired up. I've been wanting to talk about the Fort development.
Mm-hmm.
Not specifically about the Fort development, but about all our suburban sprawls that are still going on. Should I go on?
Absolutely.
Well, after studying architecture and environmental design at the University of Oregon. And then after going to Europe and traveling around and studying a lot of the architecture and environmental design over there. And then, after coming back to Montana and back to my home state, it's pretty obvious to me that what's going on is a lot of suburban sprawl still. And let me just say that
This is going to be a formal statement.
it's becoming, I don't know, is that formal?
Oh, that's wonderful handwriting.
These are notes. Mr. James Hoffman said, I guess, this was in the Missoula Independent, he's quoted as saying,
He's the architect on the Divot Development,
yeah,
and
he's part of the Divot Development.
Thank you, Daryl.
And he said, what we are really developing is what we are really about here is developing a community. This is not a homogeneous upper-class development. Did you show the folks this picture?
This is on newsprint, so it's a little bit difficult to see. But just for comparison's sake, Divot Development wants to put up 303 homes at Fort Missoula. This is a photograph of a development of about 400 homes in Portland, Oregon. So if you can see there, I believe, you see that sprawl, that's about 400 homes in a new development. And so Divot Development and the University of Montana Foundation are very happy to see 75% of what this photograph constitutes out there at Fort Missoula.
Well, go ahead and keep holding that up,
Okay.
or hold up some other pictures. Anyway, about building a community, I think this is this statement of James Hoffman that they're building a community and that is vague and a bit deceiving to me.
Mm-hmm.
I think Divot is not building a community in this riverfront open space. They are destroying a community to build nothing more than another careless suburban sprawl. They're destroying a community of plants and animals as well as wiping away the foundations of history there. And some call it progress. John Steinbeck, in his book Travels with Charlie, he went back to where he grew up along the coast of California later in his life, and he was astonished at the amount of land that had been turned into residential housing. And he said, why does progress often look so much like destruction?
Mm-hmm.
It's because it's good for the gross national product and the economy, actually. It's our society, interestingly enough. This is really sad as for architects, but we like to build things and tear things down and not to build things to last 500 years or 1,000 years. I found this out when I was a student of architecture, that America likes to build Costco's and strips, and that's good for the economy to keep tearing things down.
I mean, every 30 years we want to recycle things in America. Is that what you're saying? 30, 40, 50?
It's there's more money available to destroy things than to preserve things.
Well, I took a ride out to Fort Missoula with Terry Jimerson today, right? And we didn't have time to make a microscopic examination of the whole place. But the stables there, right, which is a bone of contention in this, because the developers, as I understand the discussion, really, really don't want that there. They want that eliminated, right? Okay, so I went over to the Office of Community Development and I looked at, just some historical particulars about it. It was built in 1915, and it's a really huge building. I mean, it was originally built as a stables, and then was used kind of like as a car barn or truck barn.
It looks like it's well built.
Well, it does. It looks like it's well built, and it looks useful, right?
Yeah.
And it's not like it's the most wonderful, beautiful building in the world. I don't think of it as being some sacred thing that deserves to be saved, in and of itself. But as you said, why must everything be destroyed for something new coming down the pike? Why is it that building has sat there on the University of Montana property all these years without being put to good use.
Someone said that the drama department uses buildings out there for storage of stuff.
Well, but there's so many buildings out at the fort, because Terry was talking about this, but I thought, I had the impression that he was talking about some of that space was farther out in the western area of the fort. But the stables itself, I'm not sure, whether it's used for any storage or not. But if there's a housing crisis, well, I mean, maybe the Rodeo Club could have it, or maybe it could be a nature center, or maybe it could be turn it over to the Habitat for Humanity. Let it be quarters for, we have a housing problem here. Let it be a new dorm. And let the kids that want to live in that dorm, then if they're worried about scholarships, which is what the University of Montana Foundation says this sale is all about, that they just want to put the $500,000 in the bank in order to make scholarship money. And I stopped downtown today and talked to a financial analyst with one of the top brokerages, and I said, if they put 500 grand in the bank, that's rounding out the sum they'd get for the property, right? If they put that in the bank, what's the maximum they could expect to see on a yearly basis? And she said, if they reserve it in an escrow fund and that principal can never be touched, right, it could conceivably bring in about 30 grand a year, right, for scholarships. Well, okay, say that's 15 scholarships at 2 grand a piece. Not, it's a scholarship, 15 of them. But isn't there more value perhaps to be gained by saying, well, we're going to turn this into a very unusual dormitory, and where does the scholarship come in? That if you're willing to live there and not have a car, because you were talking about cars, you before we came on the air, you wanted to get to cars.
Yeah, I'm about to get to cars.
Okay, so if they pledged, stipulated, all right, I'll take a free room at the stables dorm, and I will not have a car, and I will take my bike or public transportation back and forth between the main campus and here. Hey, there's plenty of kids that be racing down there to get a room in that free dormitory, because there's so many of them with bicycles anyway. But that's a stupid idea.
Well, you'd think
that's a stupid idea. There's no imagination to an idea like that. That's far out. That's weird. That's a very weird idea. Isn't it weird?
It may happen to be practical, but
it's not. No, it's not practical.
It's practical, but it is weird.
Yeah.
Anyway, about automobiles. There's one thing interesting, I think the most interesting thing I learned when I was studying architecture is that we no longer live in a human-scaled environment. It's this automobile-scaled environment.
Mm-hmm.
Could you hold up some of those?
Absolutely. We have another photo here for our camera crew.
Our world turns around the automobile, especially out west, where driving is sometimes a recreational activity in all this big sky country. Everything we build now revolves around the car, from Costco to Shopko, from drive-ins to driveways, from the 93 strip to the lonely Super 8 motel on the interstate. The car is the center of everyone's life, whether you own one or not. Our man-made environment is now out of human scale. It's an automobile-scaled world now, and it's sprawling wildly across the West, the last frontier of suburban sprawls. The fact is, we're addicted to automobiles. Because of the thoughtless way we design our communities, most folks need a car to travel to 1 to 10 miles to work or shop or play. Very simply, we've simply spread things out so much that cars become almost a necessity rather than a luxury, and folks can feel a bit powerless without a car. Most people get hooked and are regular users. And without adequate public transportation, the addiction grows worse. The good news is, though, there is a good news.
Okay.
Automobiles are very good for the automobile industry and the big oil companies, and they thus provide jobs, especially in poor developing backward third world countries. And I'd like now to pause for this advertisement, if someone could go on this advertisement. Let's see.
I think it's
Mimi?
Daryl's got it.
At last, the automobile worthy of the times, the style, the statement are sheer extravagance. No expense has been spared, no detail overlooked. A timeless treasure, the apocalypse, boasts unheard of standard features, like pollution-related cancer, respiratory and heart disease valued at $103 billion each year, automobile injuries and related expenses of $394 billion, and indulgences like gas and auto subsidies, lost time due to congestion, and road construction and maintenance, lifting this impressive little number by some $927 billion a year. Still, what good would all these wonders do if not for the delightful pleasures which have earned this car its name? For example, a guaranteed petroleum supply, most years a bargain at $30 billion or so, but courtesy of the Gulf War, now over $150 billion. And what would the apocalypse be without the greatest extravagance of all, introducing the Apocalypse Payment Program?
Hey,
Conveniently allowing you to defer your payments to your children and to their children after that. I should mention, though, that this sticker price of $250,000, there's a little note at the bottom. It says that this sticker price is based on individual share of total social costs associated with automobiles in the U.S. over average car life of 10 years. Does not include freight handling, oil spills at sea and on land, acid rain from auto emissions and auto industry smokestacks, environmental and health costs from global warming, damage due to water and vegetation from road salts, discharged by auto industry toxins into the waterways and vegetation, neurological damage from lead discharges, health costs due to noise pollution, secondary emotional damage to families of automobile accidents, tire fires, displacement of biological wetlands, 500 million mammals killed yearly by automobiles, 3 million acres of farmland displaced yearly in the U.S., ozone depletion due to chlorofluorocarbons from automobile air conditioners, number one cause of chlorofluorocarbons, oil, gasoline, and chemical runoff from the roads into waterways. Yearly, runoff in the U.S. is estimated at 21 Exxon Valdez oil spills. Pollution from underground oil storage tanks, air conditioning and power, extra steering. It's time that we bring it into the automotive age, and it's the job of all good Americans to try and demarket the automobile if we can.
get rid of it?
Get rid of it, yeah. It's needed in some, not to get rid of it completely.
Right.
But it is needed in we can have main thoroughfares of cars, but we must realize how it's interesting now that when we build subdivisions and there's no longer any sidewalks, and it's like people don't walk around in the neighborhood anymore. They just drive in, and they're in their house, and sidewalks are obsolete now. Where it used to be part of the sidewalks were like a part of the flow of the community. And now in these modern neighborhoods, they're gone. They're a thing of the past.
Well, just before you leave the car specifically, one of the things that I was reminded of in the last couple of days, I think it's still true at a number of colleges around the country. I don't know about public colleges, but at private colleges, I mean, and maybe it's part of what's the social contract as well as the rules are, that you can't bring a car, if you're going to college, you can't bring a car to college until you're a junior.
So
you can't bring a car on the campus.
Yeah.
So I mean, but that's too weird. I mean, that's too far out. Can you imagine if people, freshmen, were forbidden to bring a car onto the University of Montana campus? I mean, that would be something to start a revolution about, wouldn't it? I mean, that's a weird idea.
Yeah, some of them have really nice cars that they
treasure.
don't like to leave alone.
No,
Not sit around.
No, but I mean, it is an idea. It's a practical thing. Other colleges do it, but I mean, you never hear where's the University of Montana Foundation talking about ideas and solutions? No, let's just sell this land to people who will need cars, and I'll bet you that development has plans for plenty of two-car garages.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, there is actually the university gets a lot of there's money available to build parking lots, and rather than than other
Somebody
things.
else was saying, even recognizing that there are problems and that okay, so we'll try and go for some practical solutions that might have some respectability in establishment circles. But a friend today was saying, because the university is talking about building a parking garage, right behind the Mansfield Library, right? Well, all right. My friend suggested, well, what about that huge parking lot, the biggest one of all, across from the field house and the radio TV building, right? If you're going to put up a parking structure, why don't you dig down in there and put the first deck of a parking structure, below ground, then build 4 more, let's say a 4-story parking garage there, and then you'd have at least the same amount of car space as you do now, but only taking up half that parking lot space, and put the business school there and save the Greensward, which is up on Arthur Avenue, right? But those are very rarefied circles we're talking about now. We're talking about, what do I know about architecture and engineering? What does anybody know? We don't know anything. We're just, crazy people who are trying to block progress at all costs. Look at us talking about the Stables. Who needs that Stables? It was built in 1915. It needs paint, and it's falling apart. It's just a disgrace, and that's why the University of Montana has never bothered with it anyway.
So call us with your opinion on these subjects. Are we addicted to the automobile or not? As we go riding our cars, galloping across Montana, sprawling subdivisions over hill and dale, over splurging black asphalt, the last best frontier for the automobile.
Howdy.
How you doing?
Not bad.
I'm enjoying your show today.
Thank you.
You're talking about the way cars have reinvented our lives. So, where do you think bicycles fit in?
Let's see. Rich, you ride bicycles more than I do.
Oh, do you know that? Yeah, I think the people who bike and walk is 17% higher than the national average.
In Missoula?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it's nice here. It's flat. There's no hills for bicycles. It's an excellent town to bike around in. I think we should take advantage of it.
Well, what do you think, caller?
Bicycles, I think we should use them much more. I think it's ridiculous that people would actually drive to the store to, just to get something.
Well, do you think, are you a student?
Yeah, I ride my bicycle every day.
Uh-huh. Well, do you think that would be, what I threw out there before, would that be an incentive to a student coming to the University of Montana that said, well,
The dormitory thing?
well, that or where you'd get a discount, on your tuition or whatever if you only used your bicycle?
Right. Yeah, if they could, if you could document that you could, that you've been only using the bicycle, I'm sure people could find a way around it.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Go ahead, explain that a little bit more.
Well, people could find a way
To cheat?
Yeah, exactly. Because it's human nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Wait, I gotta go. I got some stew on the stove.
All right, thanks.
You betcha, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.
Well, I'm gonna.
But weren't you? Was that all of your words, or were you quoting a couple of folks in
no,
there?
that was all my words. Let me quote now.
Okay. Those were great words. I thought that I was I thought that I was hearing Wallace Stegner, or I did. I thought they were beautiful.
Gee. Well, here's some words from.
By the way, this guy. Anybody who doesn't know this guy, he's doing a character by the name of Teddy Blue all around the state of Montana. Great.
Yeah.
It's a great show, and it's
That's right. I'll be doing it next month here at the university.
Next month.
Yeah. Teddy Blue, the reality of a Montana cowpuncher.
Uh-huh.
And it's a clear-eyed account stories of what happened 100 years ago out west. And
It's all true.
it's not very romantic, the stories.
Well, it's romantic in the greatest sense
Yeah,
of the
that's
word.
true. Not in the mythological romance, though.
But he's a great character, Teddy Blue. He was ranched and cowboyed in Montana for
And spoke out for Native Americans.
married to a Native American woman,
A lot.
and
And spoke out for the religious freedom
mhm.
at the turn of the century.
Marvelous, humane figure, and so watch out for Teddy Blue. And what date are you up at the university?
I don't know yet.
Okay.
Uh,
Watch the headlines, folks.
Have you ever heard of a book called The Pursuit of Loneliness?
I'm very familiar with the content of that book.
Well, it came
The Pursuit of Loneliness, is that it?
1970.
There's a lot of us here on that.
1970. I forgot the author. Well, anyway, he says about cars. Most importantly, our encounters with others tend to increasingly be competitive as a result of the search for privacy. We less and less often meet our fellow man to share and exchange, and more often encounter him as an impediment or a nuisance, making the highway crowded when we are rushing somewhere, pushing in front of us at the supermarket, taking the last parking place, polluting our air and water, building a highway through our house. Because we have cut off so much communication with each other, we keep bumping into each other. And thus, a higher and higher percentage of our interpersonal contacts are abrasive. To go on, here's Barbara Ward in her book, The Home of Man. She says,
British economist.
the scale and the increase of the number of automobiles in this country is phenomenal. Not by intention, but by historic drift, the result is even greater incoherence in the urban patterns of home, work, and leisure. Cars, first of all, reinforce the regular flood of commuting morning and night, despite the increased pressure and jamming. One of the few laws Professor Parkinson did not formulate, that traffic rises to fill whatever space is made available for it,
Mm-hmm.
has been given all but universal validity in the last couple of decades. Meanwhile, the original dream of the automobile, its gift of freely chosen times and speeds, gives way to the hour-long waits, breathing other people's exhausts in congealed traffic jams. On weekends, when the pleasures of private choice and private enjoyment should reach their peak, 3-hour traffic blocks the road back from the beaches, and they have to be accepted as part of the escape from the urban condition. So are we shooting ourselves in the foot with our love affair with the automobile? And are we in denial about it? And are we addicted to the automobile? And who's talking about this? The major problem, one of the major problems in our country. It isolates us from one another. We bump into one another. We are ending up taking up more and more land for asphalt and driveways, and it's.
Well, we're hurrying. Everybody's hurrying, everywhere we go. And I mean, I think partly it's a reflection of the economy. I don't have a good car. I'd like to have, a better car than I have. I just got this car, my first one in 15 years, and it's an old clunker, and I don't feel safe and comfortable in it. So, I'm not, as you said earlier, we're not going to, not in our lifetimes will we go back to a time when there were no cars. So, I'm not a saint. I'd like to have a decent car, but why do we? Why do we have to? I was in an auto. Now I know why they call them an auto graveyard. I was out in a junkyard the other day out by the Y, and it was kind of weird and ominous, to walk back there and see all this jumble of steel and glass and wire and aluminum and rubber.
Right.
And you could almost feel dead and injured people as well, walking out there. And it was a cold, kind of dreary place. And why don't we just make sure that everybody has a good car and
I got a better idea.
Okay.
I got a better idea. Why can't we just, since we have so many cars, why can't we just have a place where you can go rent a car very cheaply whenever you want one? Now you have to have a credit card to rent a car, and I think it's pretty expensive to rent a car. I know in some places in the world, like I think in Amsterdam or in the Netherlands, they have bicycles that are like,
Left around.
yeah, you just go and use a bicycle. It seems like we probably have that many cars. Why don't we just have cars that you can go check out from like the library when you need a car, and then we wouldn't. What do you think about that idea?
Well, I mean, I think if we weren't, if people in America, if we weren't so, if everybody didn't seem to need so much money to get along, I mean, let's say in our territory, there's the mother works, the father works, maybe the grandmother works, and the two teenagers work, because they're all trying to, make enough money to buy the clothes, to go to school, to pay this bill and that bill, the other, and to pay the bills for the cars. And each one of them, because they have 5 different jobs, needs a car to go to work. So it's a vicious cycle. I mean, why can't we, restructure? And it would take that, the restructuring of needs and limits is, I guess, is the word that we're looking for.
I heard an interesting concept last night. I went to that slideshow at Fact and Fiction about selling the West, and the author of the book says, or he mentioned, I think, who said this? He quoted that Americans tend to live instead of a place, they like to live in an idea, and instead of a place, and they move to Vail, to this idea, and they never really give a damn about what's going on out around the area.
They've moved into the idea instead of the place.
And they're fleeing from responsibility. He says
they what?
They're fleeing from responsibility, and they're just wrapped up in an idea, and perhaps it's an illusion, or maybe. And is that happening here? Is it going to happen here? People move here because of the idea, and hopefully not. Hopefully they're moving here to get connected to the land, to farm our souls, and not to plug them into the TV.
It's a tough ride. What is it? The title of that anthology of that is that your friend. From the university, Tough Trip Through Paradise.
So callers, what there must be some thoughts out there on these subjects.
They're all wrapping Christmas presents, or making cookies, or
God bless them.
Or they're watching something else on TV. they're watching the local news. I could never get a job. These white socks of mine would never do. If I was gonna, be on KPAX TV or something. Who was talking about the dead space on Montana Evening Edition lately? I've been, it seems like in the past few years there's been a lessening of the amount of news. I've heard a number of Missoula consumers talking about this. Faithful fans of KUFM Montana Public Radio, but there seems to be more reporting off the wire service about automobile accidents and murders and fires and explosions and things like that. Because we used to get years ago, not that many years ago, we used to get, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, we used to get a half an hour of news in the morning, half an hour of state, local and state news.
That's nice.
In the morning on KUFM, and then you got the half an hour in the evening. But there was a lot more, extensive little telephone interviews all around the state. I remember, this is going back in time, and now it seems like we're just getting an awful lot of tabloid stuff. Hello.
Yeah, McCarthy.
Yeah.
You remember some time ago I kind of broke that story about out there at Port Missoula?
I recall you're talking about it, yes.
Yeah. I went out there and took a look at that property they're looking at. That's down there by the old bird sanctuary and where the big water tower's at. What
Yeah.
we're mainly looking at.
Right.
If you take a real close look at that horse barns, they're about ready to come down. They're pretty well deteriorated.
Okay.
I talked with Jim Hoffman about that. If people want to go ahead and put money into it, possibility they might be able to do something.
Are you saying that? Is that your own expressed opinion that that it's falling down?
Yeah, that's mainly what I'm looking at because see, the majority of what's happening out there, Fort Missoula, if you look on your map, everything west, the graveyard and that is not being touched. The hospital's not being touched. It's just that area is between the two golf courses and
Well,
the bird sanctuary, and they are going to protect that down there, according to what they told me.
Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to ask you. Because are you familiar with if you go way east in Fort Missoula, way in back of the actual museum at Fort Missoula? There's the National Guard or whatever has got a bunch of trucks parked over there, and there's some big garages. You know what I'm talking about?
Right, you're
Okay,
way back there now
right, right. And then you move over a little bit to the north, and there's another huge barn that looks like like it might have been a horse barn at what, and it's all boarded up and not being used. Do you know about that? It's made out of wood.
Yeah, that was some of the old stables they used to have. Also, if you
Well, I just wanted to ask, I just wanted to bring that up as a talking point. Why do buildings like that, or why should buildings like that sit empty and surplus when, if you said to Habitat for Humanity, well, do you guys want to fix this up for a multifamily low-income dwelling? Why do things like that just sit there?
Well, we could go in there and say, hey, we have a lot of people on the street. Let's kind of put these people out there. Once we put all that money in there, are we really going to get these people to go out there and live?
Well, maybe if Richie gives them a car.
Possibility, but you got to remember, out here at the fort here, majority of the guys that were out there over the years, all they did is ride bicycles, not horses.
There are so many painters and writers in this community that are looking for studio space, whether you call it working space or living space. There's a big demand for space here. So I would say a building like that, even if you weren't talking about it as residential quarters, maybe a teen center or maybe art studios. Yes, a place that was fixed up, I still think would absolutely draw.
I agree.
Yeah.
I agree with you wholeheartedly. My grandma and grandpa used to take care of the grounds out there back in the 50s, and there was ideas being shot around there about that years and years ago. Of course, born and raised here in Missoula, I've walked that place many times.
Listen, Richie wants to do a demonstration of how you make a divot.
Well, I just brought my golf club along to. I was surprised that this development company out there is calling themselves Divot.
Divot?
Divot means it's a golf term, and it's
Well, it's from the Scottish. Right.
it's a Scottish word, and a divot is when you take a chunk of the turf out, accidentally usually. When you swing the club to hit the ball, the club goes too far down into the earth, and a big chunk or a small chunk comes up, and golfers usually carry these little tools that they can carefully put the sod back into the earth, and everything will be fine with that. But with this Divot Development Company, they're taking divots out but not putting them back. And I wonder if how they came up with their name, Divot Development. I wonder if it was because they were all golfers and they sit around in their office perhaps with a map of Missoula on the floor, and they with their golf clubs they might examine, kind of pointing to the map like generals perhaps outlining a battle plan, and maybe they could, here's some open space here, they see. and James, would you like to take a swing? No, go ahead, Gary. Okay, and this is in their office. And
And so they line up, and this is Fort Missoula right here. I'm going to take a shot at.
Again. I love that.
And down comes the club, and there goes Fort Missoula.
Well, yeah, that would be nice.
All right. Thanks for calling.
So that's
As I say, there's always the one thing that stuck out with me when because it was my main boat when they asked me, and I said, well, I'm kind of looking down the road with for our young people today. What are they going to have left for them for tomorrow?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is that the housing projects are going to mainly be the kind of the outlet of what was there originally. This is what Mr. Hoffman and the other guys are going to do. Is mainly the houses that you got out there are going to mainly be looking like the ones that is out there now. Fort Missoula is all boarded up.
Well, I mean, I looked at some sketches at the Office of Community Development today, and it didn't. Those sketches that I mean, architectural sketches are. That's the trouble. They're only that. They're sketches, but they didn't look like that. What's it called? Mission military style that I see at the fort.
Well, that's the one thing I really ask any question before I even give a vote or anything like that. But yeah, the bird sanctuary is going to be taken care of. They're going to correct that so nobody gets down where those birds are at. The water towers we're concerned about. I was also concerned about the stables, but after going out there and taking a look at them, that thing's pretty.
So you're satisfied to put 300 homes in there?
No, I don't think we should put 300 in there. If we're going to do anything, I say about 80 or 90 homes and make it so it looks nice and keep a.
Well, what do you think?
Have a walk through there, and bicycle route through there. You know, that's what's happening downtown. Why can't we do that?
What do you think about the University of Montana and the foundation's responsibility in terms of how it was given the land, which was public land, that means yours and mine, when it was originally given, and it was given with the proviso that this be for educational purposes? I mean, are you satisfied with that?
Well, I think the University of Montana stinks when they did that. I'm sorry, but you know, the city, the state, or the feds given that to the city, and then they turn around and give it.
Oh, we lost. I'm sorry. That was. I was trying to get rid of the. I'm sorry. I punched two buttons in order to get rid of the static, and I got. There he is. There you go.
Okay, here I am. But that's mainly the idea is that I think the university did the wrong thing, but yet when they went ahead and put that golf course in there and took a big chunk out of it, now they're going to put in bigger roads going out there on both sides now, coming into that condo. And then the bird sanctuary is what I was mainly worried about out there in the river, because there's a lot of birds out there. It comes down here during the fall, and they usually park themselves there before they head on to south, and when they're coming back north.
Well, I hope they recognize the terrain.
I hope they do too.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Hey, you too. Thanks for calling.
You bet. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You know, I still think the alternative is not to lower the density of housing out there necessarily. The problem of the way we develop communities in our country now, for the last 40 years, is we sprawl things out.
Mm-hmm.
And we need not to do that. We need to. What they taught me in architecture and environmental design is that we should, when we build communities, we should have a mixture of residential and commercial together.
Mm-hmm.
Where typically, and most Americans are, actually we're very selfish in this country, wanting to have our own house and our own yard, and it's really, it's not very practical as far as urban design goes. It's very inefficient and costly, and I think when we develop, we should develop much more densely and save space on the outside instead of isolating ourselves and sprawling out everywhere. We're just we think there's land. We just think we got all the land we want, or something.
Well, I just we just got a 5-minute warning shot here.
Okay.
But no, you know, you've stayed this long. You might as well stay till the bitter end.
I will. I'll stay with you till the very end.
Well, until almost the very end. I'm still disturbed by this idea of the educational mission. In other words, I really don't. I mean, is this the first time in 25 years that the university has had an offer of cash for this piece of property? I still don't understand what the intention was going back apparently to the late 1960s when this land was originally, deeded over to the University of Montana with this stipulation that it be used for educational purposes. Well, so the theater department stores some stuff out there. I don't know what else goes on out there, but in terms of a university is an outward bound thing, I mean, it's not as if everything has to be up there on that campus, right? I mean,
That's right. It should be mixed in with the community.
Another concept of architectural strategy
right.
and growth is, okay, so maybe botany wants to go out there, or physical
Yes.
sciences, or whatever, or maybe the honors college
The
goes there.
university should be invisible. It should be mixed in with the community. So and what we have typically is isolated universities, and they build walls as the way the way they lay themselves out. Historically, universities were going back hundreds of years, universities, you can't even recognize them in Dublin or in
'Cause
in Rome.
they just-
They're all over the place. And as a consequence, bankers end up having